All right, so next up is Leigh Durst. Leigh is a recognized authority in business operations and digital transformation. For over 20 years, she has been a trusted advisor to global Fortune 100 startups, nonprofits, and businesses across sectors. And I want to make sure I get this list right. So including companies like 1-800-Flowers and American Express, AOL, Time Warner, Bristol-Myers Squibb, Chevron, IEEE, Walmart, even the U.S. Army Reserves. Okay, so big time clients, really making impact with them. And she's also written a book, Walk, Climb, or Fly, Surviving and Thriving in the Workplace Wilderness, which helps professionals and managers in any environment improve their interpersonal relationships and workplace dynamics. And that's exactly what she's going to share with us today. And I cannot wait for her to share her wisdom. So Leigh, take it away.
Thanks for that great introduction, Denise. It is really my honor to be here. Thanks for you, the way that you and Evan have prepared our speakers, and to the team for hosting Passion Talks. I followed for many years. It's really my honor to be here. I'll jump right into it. So if you think about it, we spend anywhere from 13 to 25 years just preparing to enter the workforce, from attending primary school through high school or its equivalent, to trade school or university, to grad school or postgraduate university, if we are fortunate enough. And all this time we spend cramming our heads full of knowledge that we will need to develop the skills that we'll need to enter the workforce and carve out a path of this thing we call success. Yet many of us enter the workforce prepared to have a job, but not necessarily prepared for the professional journeys that we'll face. An estimated 40 to 50-year journey if you work to retirement, through what is essentially a very man-made work environment, a natural place, a workplace wilderness full of rules, terrain, politics, challenging interpersonal dynamics, and expectations that can make it really hard to find your way, to secure a good job fit, to find the right team with which to partner, and even to find a good mentor that can help guide you along your path. And my experience was very much the same way. I entered the workforce really surprisingly equipped to use emerging technology to help companies do business differently, but I wasn't prepared to face a journey that I would have as a disruptor and a change agent, especially in organizations that had really ingrained ways of doing things. And I was good at my job, but it was sometimes challenging and sort of lonely. And I was kind of wired a little differently than my colleagues. And to make things even more challenging, I was a strong Christian woman. And it was hard for me to find people like me, either in the church or in business, or anyone who could really guide me on what was essentially a very pioneering path. So I became super motivated really early on to not only understand and manage myself better, but to understand and align with other people so that I could take them on a journey with me that was positive. And when I started looking at ways to better do this, there were about 30 different methodologies and frameworks on the market, examining everything from the way your personality works, to your temperament, to the way you lead, think, manage, love, learn, and much more. And today there are over 55. You might recognize a few like DISC or Myers-Briggs, StrengthsFinder, or Enneagram. And both through my employers and independent pursuits, I studied a lot of these over the years, and I learned a lot about myself. However, I often walked away from these environments feeling a little bit frustrated from a workshop or a class because when it came back to coming to everyday work life, I had trouble really remembering what I'd learned and assimilating that just as it pertained to me. And when it came to working with other people, it was even more complicated, whether I had to remember 9 types or 16 different temperament styles or 35 strengths or 4 acronyms. It was just hard to remember and apply that, especially in the middle of conflict or pressure. So it was hard getting on the same page with other people too, because today we all seem to have our favorite ones, and every company seems to use their own, and they might use a few. So for years I thought maybe I was a bad student, or maybe I was alone in my frustration, but I know that I'm not. Today, many people feel the same way. And what ends up happening for a lot of us is that we come out of studying this stuff with a better understanding of ourselves, which is good. But when it comes to understanding and better managing and aligning with others, we have a much harder time of it. And that is a pity to me, especially today when we really need more human understanding than ever before. And so when I really started looking at it, I don't know why my slides aren't advancing, sorry about that. As a change agent and as a Christian, I really wanted to become more competent at laying the relational groundwork that would help me work more efficiently and in harmony with other people and live out my faith in a way that was really positive and compelling. So I began to really pray and ask God to help me as I searched for a simple way to quickly assess another person, understand how they're basically wired to function, use that to establish a bridge of understanding and some common ground where we could really agree on approaches, priorities, and mutual goals, and then hit those mutual wins in that collaboration, leaving everybody feeling positive about the value exchange and the experience at the end of it. And like Brian, for a good portion of my career, I worked in management consulting, leading digital operations, marketing, and business transformation efforts. And my job gave me this really unique vantage point in observing organizational cultures of all kinds across every imaginable kind of organization in various stages of maturity, across industries, and even working across different departments and ranks from the mailroom to the boardroom. And while every organization I served was radically different, I could not help but marvel at the remarkable parallels that I began to see related to one thing, and that was how people got things done. And I never imagined that would become an answer to prayer for me, but I couldn't help but start to observe and record observations, and a theory began to form, and I began to test that theory and make micro changes in the way that I was approaching different kinds of people, and the results were really positive. The patterns that I recognized were helping me quickly and pretty accurately read people, and the changes that I made to adapt to different patterns were really removing friction in the process. And as time progressed and that theory became more fully baked, I began to share it with others, and I was really delighted to hear that they were experiencing the same positive outcomes. And all of this really started 16 or 17 years ago and became the foundation for what I now call operational styles theory, which is a highly visual, highly memorable, and really practical way of understanding complicated workplace and interpersonal dynamics. And it's now the topic of a book that I wrote, which we'll talk about. It was written for a secular audience. So let's talk about operational styles really quick. They really deal with this narrow lens of work, how you perceive your job, work, or career, how you view yourself within a work context, how you like to get things done and leverage people to do that, and the things that are more likely to energize and motivate you. And there are 3 operational styles found in any workplace: walkers, climbers, and flyers. And you can tell what operational style you have by how you align to the potentially distinguishing traits that are associated with each style. And we divide these into pros, which are kind of strengths, and pitfalls, which are areas that can be potentially negative or limiting that you need to really manage well in order to work at your best. And so the book offers self-assessments and chapter materials that help you really understand these 3 styles and narrow down to your own. Everybody has a dominant operational style. You're not going to have 2 or 3. You might align to some traits across all 3, but you'll have a dominant one, and you won't shift from having one to another. Every style also has an essential role or function in the workplace. So that means that there isn't one style that's superior to another, and you can find these in any rank and any department. So we'll touch quickly on the 3 styles. First, we have the walker. Walker is the reason things run, and they tend to view their job as a meaningful component of an otherwise larger existence. They're not usually defined solely by the work that they do, and they tend to have a very defined, deep lane of expertise that's real clear and usually aligned to education or training or past experience, and they tend to choose positions with their eye to the longer term. Progressing rather methodically through their careers can be kind of looking at a clear path through the tall grass, although there are some exceptions to that. Walkers tend to work within a critical area of operational function that's often interconnected with other departments or people. And that exposure that they get to other teams and processes can help them build this wealth of understanding that can make them a go-to resource for how things work. Collectively, walkers really establish the infrastructure, systems and tools and process, the guidelines or policies, communications frameworks that really create a productive environment. And they also do a phenomenal job at forming social relationships at work and circles of trust, which not only help them get their work done more efficiently, but really ground the organization in a sense of community. And walker circles of trust tend to link together to form the grapevine in the workplace through which news and gossip tend to travel. They're motivated by structure and being given a clear territory or mandate within which to work. And because the job can be complicated and interruptions can have trickle-down effects, they really appreciate people who respect the boundaries they put in place and the nature of the work they do. And they also really like to be able to forecast what's ahead so that they can maintain this productivity, stability, and balance that they value. Next, we have the climber, who is the focused driver. So climbers tend to see their jobs as a stepping stone to something better. And they naturally see these leverage points in any situation that they can use to their advantage. And like any mountaineer that might be progressing to the summit, climbers are exceptionally focused. And in the workplace, the climber's focus is really driven out of a dual agenda. On one side of this agenda is the company agenda, doing what I need to do in order to make the company succeed so I succeed. And on the other side of that agenda, it has to do with really fueling my own personal growth and advancement over time. And the agenda really forms the basis for everything the climber does. And that can make them exceptionally good at prioritization and simplification. They excel in establishing the imperatives and goals and objectives and milestones that drive an organization to achieve specific outcomes at a micro and a macro level. And they can be masterfully resourceful. They can be really good at delegation and have these light of favor powers that make people do great things for them. They can be terrific champions of the ideas of other people if they align to their agenda. And they just need to be careful about how they use those powers so that they don't over control, dominate, or take ownership. They are naturally good negotiators, persuaders, speak the language of executives, manage up well, and network. And they are really motivated by power, influence, status, authority, advancement, rank, and this concept of reward. So climbers are the ones who are really saying, see that hill? We're going to take that hill. And once we take that one, we'll take the next one. Driving the organization to hit these milestones related to anything from projects to programs to products, productivity, profit, and more. Then we have the flyer. So everybody wants to have purpose in life, but for flyers, they really see their job as just this intricate part of their mission, purpose, and calling in life. They can't separate it. And because of that, out of all three styles, they tend to have the worst time at establishing any form of work-life balance. A lot of flyers don't even see the need for it until they get married or have kids. And classifying what a flyer does can be kind of challenging because they have this really broad multidisciplinary ability and skill. And they might be crossing boundaries, disciplinary boundaries, or they might be crossing organizational boundaries or doing many things at once. They are natural catalysts, risk takers, and change agents who stir up the wind with their proverbial wings. And because of this boundary crossing factor and this change factor, they can make people feel sometimes overwhelmed and threatened. But that also makes them really, really good at solving big problems that affect the broader organization. Flyers are also exceptionally energized by ideation and brainstorming. And they have this ability to get up at this 30,000-foot view, right, and see the interconnection of things in the future and in the organization. And they can zoom down also into executional detail at blinding speed, and that can be very frustrating because they can be exhausting and overwhelming. But this allows them to really infuse the organization with transformative vision, perspective, direction, ideas, and solutions that result in the evolution of the business. And because of the way they work, they're motivated by having latitude and freedom to really innovate and build things to them that matter. So we have all these styles fueling the fire of collaboration and community, and things work well together when the compatibilities between styles come together, and we find ourselves doing the things we do best and in trust and reliance on other people to do the same thing. And this can feel positive and energizing and motivational, and all these feelings can reign. But of course, that's a bit of a panacea. Work is very rarely like that. When styles collide, or when individual needs are fulfilled, or when people are acting on their pitfalls, or the natural tensions between styles take over, it can trigger negative change reactions that extinguish the fire and damage trust, relationships, and teamwork, create a dysfunctional working environment that is marked by all these emotions. And left to fester, that can really damage organizational culture. So a big portion of our framework really deals with managing style dynamics. And we provide a lot of robust exercises in the book that can help people across 3 areas that I'll address quickly in closing. But since this is a Christian audience, it's worth mentioning that the secular recommendations we offer in this book have really strong biblical foundations. And I've put some references to those in the slides ahead for anybody that's interested. So the first area we ask people to work on is self-management. And that has to do with 2 things. First, managing your natural tendencies. You know how you're designed to function and what's going to work for you. You can work on managing your pitfall, your pros, and minimizing those pitfalls. And then second has to do with managing the headspace, which really has to do with correcting internal dialogue about yourself, situations, and other people, so that you are not triggering emotional responses that are damaging or negative or unproductive. Second, we ask people to work adaptively. And that really has to do with really understanding how other people are designed to function, and learning how to plug in and work with them in ways that minimize conflict and style clashes. And the book's really good in this regard because it's a really visual methodology. So it's a lot easier to remember. And we even have entire chapters just on how to work with somebody who has an operational style that's totally different than your own. And this is just a representative example. And then finally, stewarding your journey. That really starts with switching off any passivity or career autopilot to assume responsibility for the trek of your career, aligning your work to the way you're designed to function so you can avoid contorting yourself to fit into jobs that you were never meant to have to begin with. And then establishing plans, goals, objectives, and really a tangible view for what success should really look like for you, so that you can have kind of a true north on the compass by which you navigate your career, course correcting as you go, one step at a time. And for the Christians here, we're really called to do that in tandem and in partnership with the Lord. We're called to submit our plans to him so he can direct our steps. And it's his delight to reveal his plans to his servant. And he has plans for us. So that's an important consideration for any Christian that might be using this method. In conclusion, the big reward of operational styles theory is a better alignment for this journey through this workplace wilderness. It can help you work in greater harmony within the environments you're called to serve, work in a way that's much more closely aligned to the way that you are designed to function so that you can thrive in your natural giftings and extract more gratification from the work you do, and really appreciate and honor the way other people are wired to function so that you can adapt and partner with them in ways that extend empathy and understanding to them, especially when they don't function well. And this can only have the net outcome of making you a better aligned leader and manager who's positioned to thrive in your potential. With Christians, it can also help you relationally live out your values at work. And follow these biblical admonitions related to being transformed by the renewing of your mind and being in this world and not of it. And also offering salt and life in a dark and hurting world. I've gone a bit over, so I want to hand it back to Denise, but thank you for your time. And if you'd like to get the book or email me, all the information's right here for you. Denise?
Yay, Leslie. Leigh, that was so helpful. I'm such a geek because I love these kinds of things.
Yeah.
They help me understand myself as well as other people. And I feel like I just got a very condensed management training or leadership development course. So thank you, Leigh, for taking us through all of that.
My pleasure, really.
So great. Yeah. And I wanted to just ask you to talk about your personal operational style and how knowing that has helped you in your work.
Well, you know, I'm a flyer. So, and I actually, I'll put up the screen. I am really sort of the ultimate misfit in business. I used to call myself the Maria Von Trapp of corporate America. If anybody here has ever watched The Sound of Music, you know, I didn't quite fit into the institution, and that was because I was a change agent. And so on one side, I had this transformative vision and the ability to come up with new ideas and to be strategic and actually execute the strategies that I came up with. But I also had trouble sometimes selling my ideas and relaying those ideas and dealing with a lot of the resistance that I encountered. And you know, on one hand, I was a change agent. On the other hand, I could be a troublemaker. I could really stir things up and I could step on toes. So I have learned to really tuck my wings and land gently beside people in the collaborative process. so that I'm not beating them to death with the realities that I see. And I've also learned how to tame my tendency to want to take them on aerial maneuvers with me, because not everybody is geared to do that kind of thing. And heck, maybe they have deadlines. And so I've just really learned how to kind of ground myself and anchor myself. And that's not a bad thing, because it prevents me from flying off the handle, right? But I've learned a lot of really important lessons about how to manage myself in the context of this framework, and also how to manage others. And there's something really powerful when you understand how somebody else is designed to function, that the same things that got under your skin about them and annoyed you to no end are the same things that make them exceptionally good at doing things that you may not want to have anything to do with. And it's a lot easier to tolerate that kind of stuff when you see that it makes them great at doing something that needs to be done that you don't want to do. So that's also been a very freeing revelation, and something that really helps a lot, especially with this methodology.
Yeah, and to know that all of it is part of God's design, I think, you know, that just is so reassuring, I think. Leigh, thank you again.